How does this keep happening? The Habs keep up with some of the best teams in the NHL and once again get embarrassed by one of the worst. But despite all that, there are a couple positives to take out of this game. Some development from some young guys, plus Caufield continuing his goal streak. But we also got an amazing note about Slafkovsky and a stat that shows he was arguably better than Marchand in certain aspects this past month. And another Lane Hutson stat that will probably blow your mind, all on this episode of Habs Digest. Jesse, let's just get right into the game. This is not the first time this has happened. And, you know, when we talked about this upcoming game, Habs versus Senators, after the Habs went out and played amazing against the Avalanche, they beat them, right? They took the Oilers to overtime. They go out and win their last game. It's like, oh, the Habs are on a streak. This is amazing. Slav in back-to-back games. Caufield a goal in 3 straight. We're like, why is it that the Sharks the last time embarrassed the Habs, and this time the Senators, the bottom team in the Eastern Conference, on a night where Montreal could have moved themselves within 1 point of a playoff spot if Tampa had lost and Montreal had won, they came out with a dud. Absolutely nothing, but we gotta say, despite the 6-2 loss with one of them being an empty net goal, Caufield extends his goal streak, Jesse, and I think if there's anything positive to focus on, that's the first thing we should mention, because my goodness, he was kind of all over the ice tonight when he was on. His line mates Suzuki and Slav will pop up the game scorecard. We're not very good. Feel free to pause, take a look at this. It's not very pretty. Oh my gosh, David Savard. What were your thoughts about this game? And like at least a positive, seeing that Caufield is finally getting that shooting percentage up and breaking out of his slump.
That's the biggest positive here. Caufield, starting off the second half of the season strong. I'm thinking for Caufield, 35 goals, at least this season. It's not the 50, but, with kind of that improved defensive game, then, I think he could end up with 35. I think that's a pretty good season's work, all things considered, kind of rehabbing from that injury. But yeah, we were just out of sorts. We were just out of sync tonight. It kind of hurts this game a little bit. I'm not going to lie, right? Because as Habs fans, it kind of gets our hopes up. You know what I mean? I was going to say it gets our Habs up, because it's just like we see them play so good against, Edmonton, against, all these great teams, right? We see what they're capable of. And then, like you said, just to kind of deliver a dud in this one, like we continue 2 traditions tonight, neither of them being very good, of where we play good against really good teams, but then bad against really bad teams. He has to feel like there's a little bit of experience. But you have to feel like some of this needs to be on Marty St. Louis to really get these teams up for, this team up for these games against these lesser opponents. And then also we continue the habit of, again, we're really good on the first night of back-to-backs. But then we have the inverse record on the second nights of back-to-backs. Obviously just not much success this season, right? So definitely going to have to figure out a way. It's definitely kind of a young team there. But, you definitely want to have a little bit more of an effort because that this team is capable of it.
They are, and they show flashes of skill. And, one thing we talked about, like the second game of back-to-backs, I feel like it's a constant theme, and it repeats itself every single time. The first period, we saw the Habs come out strong. That first half of the first period, there was a chance. Slav had a wide open net after he made a great pass to Monahan, who hit the post. The puck was just bouncing, though, after hitting the post, which just bounced over his stick. Unlucky. Could have easily been another goal for Slav. It was wide open. But they were dominating. They were out there. They were fast. They were beating the Senators. And then the legs started to fail them early in that first period. And every single time the Habs are on a second game of a back-to-back and they come out strong early, they lose their legs as the game goes on. And it's just something we've noticed. I mean, look, maybe they don't notice it. Maybe it's not actually what's happening. I don't know, but it feels like it is. And you're right. Like, some coaching goes into this. I'm not going to go complain about Marty St. Louis. Not at all. And I'm sure he's doing all the right things. But this is one of those trends that you really want to you want to kick that trend, right? Especially when you have solid veterans that should help the young guys. But again, you have so many young guys at the same time. It's tough to pace yourself. You want to prove that, no, we're good. We can beat these guys. And you almost go too hard. They catch you off guard. And then the Senators had a dominating second half of that period. But overall, I mean, Montreal plays Ottawa again Tuesday, Jesse, so hopefully there'll be some time for revenge. Are you pumped for that one? You think there'll be some more scraps? Because even Pezzetta dropped the mitts tonight. It was a bit of a rough one. These two teams hate each other, and for me, I'm personally really excited to see this next matchup.
Definitely some positives for tonight. Pez scoring, him lighting somebody up in a fight for sure, so that'll definitely continue, but we'll definitely need to just capitalize on these opportunities as they come, with Jonas Korpisalo, like his confidence, the goaltender for the Ottawa Senators, not very high coming into this game. Like we should definitely be looking to take advantage of netminders in this position. A very porous Ottawa defense. And sometimes we kind of forget how good we can kind of be. We're kind of having success early in the game, and it's just up for the Habs to really remember this as the game goes on. Like, oh wait, like we can really cycle against this team. This team doesn't have a great defense, right? So I just want to see a little bit more consistency. Of course, we know we can play good against the great teams. Now we're just going to have to show that we can get up for those games that matter as well against the lesser opponents.
100%. Play Slav 60 minutes a night. I'm sure it'll help. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Speaking of Slav, this is pretty cool. Like, we know he's good, but Big Head Hockey went and put a bit of his last month into perspective, sort of talking about last 2 months, and notably since he's been at least on the first line over the past month and a half. Check this out. You guys are going to want to take a look at this. In the last 2 months, 27 games, 5 goals, 14 points. That's a 43-point pace. He's first, this is before tonight, by the way, first on the Habs with 12 even strength points, more 5v5 points than Brad Marchand, and he had a 50.23 5v5 expected goals for percentage, and while that doesn't jump off the page at you, think that's pretty much average for I mean, like, you know, basically the other team's just as good as your team, but that's third from all Habs forwards, and maybe like it's Suzuki, Monahan, Suzuki, Caufield ahead of him, something like that. But the fact he's more 5v5 points than Brad Marchand over the past 2 months, the fact that he's now on, 43-point pace over that past 2 months, like he even said himself, his progression has been insane, but this kind of puts in perspective for us, because we know he's been playing better, but to see these kind of numbers, it's becoming very, very impressive.
And we kind of needed a full season of play to really kind of get a view on the numbers a little bit with the injury from last year. Juraj Slafkovsky just eclipsing that 82-game mark. And when asked about it, he said that his next 82 games are going to be even better than his previous, right? And he sees his progress. And I would say so do we as well. And I absolutely believe him on that. I think that's what makes him so exciting as a young player, but not only his points production is that exciting, his 5v5 play, very interesting as well. But you have to feel with just players like Slav, Suzuki, Monahan as well. Like these are all the type of players that contribute to winning hockey more than just the points. That's what I like about Slav. Now, of course, we're going to have the off nights like we did a little bit now, but he's going to realize sooner than later that he's actually one of the anchors of this team, and how he performs every night has a huge effect on the rest of this team. He really matters that much to this team because he's that dynamic and he's that skilled.
Yeah, exactly. And when you watch him when he's on and he has his confidence, he's phenomenal. I mean, there's a few guys on this team like that. Actually, I mean, we see the same thing from the likes of Yoel Armia, and I don't want to compare the two, but they're both skilled large forwards. But Slav, when you see him out there and he's using his body, he's such a dominant force. And like we talked about, he is straight up one of the most skilled players on this team already. And when he wants to, he is amazing. His shot is so strong. And when he's able to touch the puck on the power play, if Matheson decides to give him the chance, like he can make things happen. These board battles are still winning every single time out there. So awesome stuff from him. Amazing production, and hope that those numbers are just going to keep going up. Final thing we want to talk about is a little Lane Hutson thing. And Big Head Hockey again. Now, look, I'm just going to be transparent. When I found this thing, it made a lot more sense than it did now, right before we went in the video. So I'm just going to let you guys take a look at, no, not that, sorry. So, every defenseman to lead the NCAA Hockey East in points, Lane Hutson, he did that last year. This isn't this year, as far as I know, of course, because he's not leading Hockey East in points this year. Only under 19 player of any position to lead Hockey East in points, and the only defenseman ever to lead him in points. That sounds so amazing on the surface. Like, that is absolutely historic. The problem is Jack Eichel led Hockey East in points as an under 19 player as well. But let's pretend Jack Eichel doesn't exist and it's just Lane Hutson. What he's doing is, again, just historic. 23 points in 17 games this year. That's about a point and a half, just under a point and a half per game, which is, again, well above his point pace from last season, which we thought was just insane, almost impossible. And among players in the entire NCAA, he is 13th in points per game. 1.35 points per game as a defenseman. You see some other phenomenal players up here, like Rucker McGroarty, big-time draft pick. You see Will Smith there. You see Cutter Gauthier, Gabe Perreault, Macklin Celebrini, his teammate there at number 2. Of course, Colin Graff leading the way with 1.94 points per game, 31 points in 16 games. But just some crazy stuff from Hutson, being a defenseman among some of these top forward draft picks, Jesse. I see a lot of people saying he's just going to be a stud on the power play, and every single game more, he's proving it. Every single time he steps on the ice, he seems to do something special, and again, he's doing things in the NCAA almost no one thought possible.
Yeah, Lane Hutson, he's going to be a star. Actually, check that. Lane Hutson is a star already.
Yes, he is.
With the skills and the confidence he has, just wait. It's not going to take long for his game to translate to the NHL. He's going to be working his magic with Suzuki in no time. Such cerebral, talented players, dynamic. I can't wait to see them working together. Obviously, one being a defenseman and Hutson, a forward and Suzuki. They're still going to play together all the same. Can't wait to see them on the power play because Lane Hutson, like you mentioned, going to be an absolute threat every single time that he's out there on the power play. And it's worth noting that every top team has a power play, a top power play, right? Where it's like you take a penalty against them and you just know, okay, there's a really good chance that this is going to end up in the back of our net, right? So this is what Lane Hutson is going to provide to the Montreal Canadiens. It's going to be a lethal power play, a team. It's going to be a power play that's going to really make other teams like afraid even to take these penalties, just knowing what the result of that is going to be. He's really that dynamic. He's really that talented. So, I mean, I just can't wait to see him very soon now, just in a couple months, really.
Yeah, that's such a crazy thought, right? That he could very well be on the Habs at the end of this season, a la Jordan Harris, Cole Caufield. It's so, so exciting. Again, I mean, we talk about him a lot, but this kind of stuff, the points per game thing, being 13th at his size and a defenseman and a 19-year-old. Slav is also 19. The future is so bright for Montreal, and we are so excited. But that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, not the game, if you enjoyed this video, because none of us enjoyed that game, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate all you sticking around to the end, and hey, we hope you stick around well into the future. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.